All right, not much fat to cut here in the quarterback room. You got Girouard, DC4. He will be QB1. Jameis Winston had a very impressive preseason. I believe he has locked himself in at QB2. Jake Haener, he played a lot during the preseason, showed some really good things, struggled in yesterday's game against the Texans a little bit. However, he is in a good spot because there's not a lot of pressure for him, and he has time to develop before he inevitably has to take over and take some QB1 reps. So I'm okay with these three guys. And just a heads up, the numbers, they're not like, it's number 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart. It's just to help us go through the roster numbers and everything like that. A lot of players, 53 guys, so just want to make sure we keep ourselves accountable, get all 53. And that's why you subscribe, Saints fans, whenever these roster cuts do come in, whenever the final 53-man roster is set, we will have you covered. Any notable players that get released ahead of time, we'll put out a short, put out a video, community post, whatever it is, we're going to have you covered. Join the almost 17,000 Saints fans we have already locked in on the channel. We want to reach 17K with this video, and I believe we can do that. And all it takes is you at home hitting that big red sub button. All right, so let's get into the running backs. Jamaal Williams, Kendre Miller, Elliss Merriweather, and Adam Prentice, whose mustache makes him look like a firefighter. It is just strong. It is impressive. You got to love that. Those are going to be your 3 running backs / 1 fullback that you have on the roster. Alvin Kamara has an asterisk next to his name because he will be suspended for the first 3 games of the season, so he will not count towards the active roster, but he will inevitably join the active roster at some point, knocking off, I believe, Elliss Merriweather. And so that means no Darrell Williams and no Kirk Merritt, unfortunately, for the Saints. But I do believe that Kendre Miller and Jamaal Williams will be an absolute freight train. One of my favorite parts about Kendre Miller is seeing the development of his passing game over the course of the preseason and throughout training camp. He's shown this growth there. Jamaal Williams, he's also a player who can be very effective when he has the ball in his hands. Both of them are tough bruisers. Both of them can make men miss. Both of them are very hard to tackle. Takes a couple guys to take down, and Kendre Miller especially has incredible contact balance, and I think that they are going to be an absolute unit to mess with for opposing defenses. So let's get over to the wide receivers. Pretty straightforward here. Kind of a tough one, to be honest. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed. Those are your 3 roster locks. And here we are. These last 3 guys made it kind of tough, but I'm going youth here. I'm going with youth, and I know that some people might get mad at me for this, but I'm going A.T. Perry, I'm going Keith Kirkwood, and I'm going Lynn Bowden Jr. And why I'm going Lynn Bowden Jr., I like him because he had a lot of special teams ability. He was used a lot in the kick and in the punt return, as well as Ugo Amadi, but I believe that Lynn Bowden Jr. can offer what you're missing from Rashid Shaheed. Because I think the Saints are going to want to use Rashid Shaheed as a true wide receiver, not just a wide receiver / special teams guy. Keep him healthy. And so that's why I have a bold prediction right here. I'm sure you saw it. Tre'Quan Smith is going to get cut or traded. I think that the Saints could send him to a team that might need a wide receiver might need a deep wide receiver guy. And there is a history of New Orleans making trades right around roster cut time. And I'm going to just give you a few examples. 2022, C.J. Gardner-Johnson gets traded to the Eagles. In 2021, Bradley Roby was traded from the Texans to the Saints. In 2019, Kiko Alonso, he was traded from Miami. In 2020, there was no trades of the roster cuts, but the Saints did trade for Quan Alexander later in the season, close to the trade deadline. And in 2020, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater from the New York Jets and traded away Devereaux Lawrence to the Cleveland Browns. So those are just, the Saints are active around this time, so don't be surprised if Tre'Quan Smith or another player I'll get into later is on the move. All right. Taysom Hill, he's going to make the roster as a tight end, but we all know he's a flex. He's kind of everything. Jimmy Graham, you know how we do. You know what we call him. Absolute stud yesterday. Looked freaking incredible against the Texans. I believe he makes the roster. Foster Moreau, I believe he is a roster lock as well. So is Juwan Johnson. This means Lucas Krull, I believe, will be on the practice squad. He showed some good things in the preseason. He really showed out yesterday with over 100 yards receiving. And if I have the stat correctly, Lucas Krull's the only player to have 100 yards receiving in the preseason this season, which is pretty cool. But Jimmy Graham is going to beat him out, and that's why I want to show some love to Himmy. I want to show some love to Himmy Graham. So type 80 down in the comment section. Absolute bodied this guy yesterday. Went up and mossed him, took his lunch money, and said, hey, sit down, old son. So show some love, type 80 in the comment section, and let's get into the trenches. Because this is where games are won and lost. This is the thick of everything here. So Trevor Penning, he's going to make the roster. That's an obvious one. James Hurst, he's actually taken advantage of Andrews Pete's injury, and he's really been able to make some noise, and he has locked himself, I believe, as a starter. Eric McCoy, he's going to be your starting center. Cesar Ruiz, Ryan Ramczyk, as well as your those are going to be your starting offensive linemen. Then you have Landon Young as the depth piece. Andrews Pete, wouldn't be surprised if the Saints look to trade him away, look to move him later in the season if they end up becoming sellers. Nick Saldiveri is a rookie draft pick. He offers way too much versatility, offers a lot. He can play pretty much anywhere on the offensive line, so I think he's going to make the roster as well. Calvin Throckmorton, he also is going to be on the roster as a guard, so that's 9 total offensive linemen. And guys, we're going to see these guys line up. We're going to see these guys go to war, and that war is on NFL Week 1. So who you got? Type S for Saints, type T for Titans. Get in the comment section. And guys, if you're a degenerate like me, if you like to be an absolute, a little reckless with your cash, I know my mom and old girl, they don't like it. But I like to be a little reckless. I like to have a little fun. I'm going to be using BetUS all season long to bet on NFL, MLB, NBA, fights, everything. Everything I'm betting on. BetUS promo code chat125 at chatsports.com/bet. You're getting a 125% deposit bonus, meaning if you put down some money right here on Saints -3.5 to win, like I'm going to do, I'm going to start out with $100 in my account. I'm going to throw some money down, and I'm going to have $125 of free money to bet with. So if I'm wrong, still got $125 to bet with. You can also bet on the over-under set at 41, but do it at chatsports.com/bet, promo code chat125. That way you get that 125% deposit bonus. All right, defensive line here. This is kind of a tough one. However, I'm very confident in this. Cameron Jordan, Colin Saunders, Nathan Shepard, Carl Granderson. Those are your starting 4. That's going to be an absolute doghouse of a group right there. Good luck to opposing offensive lines. Just straight up. Tano Passanio, he's going to make the roster. Peyton Turner, first-round pick out of Houston. I want to see a breakout year out of him, and I think he's going to make the roster, and I think he's going to make some noise. Bryan Bresee, Isaiah Foskey, they are 2 locks to make the roster. Bresee has looked great in the preseason. Isaiah Foskey, he has shown steps in growth and development every week. Dennis Allen even saying he's not where we want him exactly yet. However, he's getting there, and that's what's important. He's a rookie, second-round pick, has time to develop. Malcolm Roach, the former Texas Longhorn, shout-out producer Coop over here. He is going to make the roster, and let me tell you something about Malcolm Roach. Every single season, I feel like he continues to get a little bit better. He continues to show a little bit of an extra shine, and I am excited to see what he can do for the Saints defensive line. So 10 total defensive linemen, Let's shift to the linebackers. Demario Davis, Pete Werner, those are going to be your starting 2. Jalen Smith / Zach Bond, kind of a tough one here. Bond could be a guy, and I don't want to say he's going to get cut, but I think he could be at risk of it if the Saints want to roll with 6 wide receivers, or if the Saints want to roll with an extra safety. They want to have an extra defensive lineman, extra offensive lineman. I could see, Zach Bond, maybe even Ty Summers being a player that could be at risk of getting cut here. But Jalen Smith, he has been a superstar in the preseason for the Saints the second 2 weeks, and I'm excited to see this linebacker group continue to shake out. So the cornerbacks here, pretty straightforward. This is a very easy one to do. Marshon Lattimore, he's going to be on the roster without a doubt. Paulson Adebo, he will be your starting cornerback on the outside opposite of Marshon Lattimore. He did beat out Alontae Taylor for the starting outside CB role, but that's totally okay because I still think that he's going to be used in the rotation. Bradley Roby, he's going to be your starting slot cornerback. Lonnie Johnson, I think he's going to make the roster as well, offers you some special teams versatility and offers you value there. But I want to talk about Alontae Taylor because, like I just said, he's going to play more on the outside, and that's totally okay. He didn't quite earn the starting slot role. That's a hard position to learn. You got to learn a lot of things, and there's a lot of players out there who commit their entire lives to become a slot cornerback. It's okay if he doesn't get it in the first few months. He's going to eventually learn. Taylor is a smart player. He learns quick. He's aggressive. He is a very talented guy. So I have faith that eventually we'll see him used in the rotation as a slot here and there a little bit more. However, I believe he's going to play more on the outside this season. All right, let's get into the safeties. Tyrann Mathieu, Jordan Howden, JT Gray, Ugo Amadi. And why do I not have Marcus May on here? Well, Marcus May likely could be suspended as well. The DUI hearing, all that is wrapped up. It's all done. So we'll see what the NFL decides to do in terms of a suspension. Could face it in the first few games. Could face it part of the way through the season. We don't know. It's going to happen, though, at some point. So here's your 4 if Marcus May is suspended. Just wanted to give you guys that heads up. But Marcus May will make the roster. And I think that he'll beat out another player at a different position because Jordan Howden's looked good. Ugo Amadi, he's looked pretty solid in the preseason, and he's also shown some special teams versatility as well. And let's round it out right here with the specialists. You like that? You like that, as Kirk Cousins says. That guy's a fraud. Anyway, Blake Grupe beats out Will Lutz for the kicker battle. Now, every other roster projection I've read up on, all the other ones I've seen on Twitter, everyone I've been hearing from and I've seen has been talking about Will Lutz will probably beat out Blake Grupe. But I'm going to give a bold prediction here because I think that Will Lutz could be traded. I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Zach Wood, he's going to be your long snapper. Blake Gillikin will beat out Lou Headley, the Aussie punter out of Miami, to be the starting punter. And that is 53 players to make the roster. Saints fans, pick a kicker for me, though. I just teased that I think Will Lutz could be on the move. Now, I'm going to give you the teams that could trade for him here in just 1 second. But Blake Grupe is a player to watch out for. I think that he can make the roster. Lutz, there's a handful of kicker-needy teams. You have the Cleveland Browns, who literally just released Cade York. You have the San Francisco 49ers, who Jake Moody, you drafted in the 3rd round, right, Coop? Yeah, the 3rd round has looked like shit. The Cowboys, they need a kicker. Denver, they might need a kicker. You got Brett Maher, who's, whatever, I guess, fine. But do you really want to trust Brett Maher? No. And then the Rams, they also could use a kicker. I think that these are all teams that could use a kicker. So, guys, pick one for me. I think Blake Grupe makes the cut here. I think the Saints end up trading a guy like Will Lutz away. Either way, neither of these guys are going to make it through waivers. So one of them's gone, one of them's staying. Pick a kicker for me. I'm going with Blake Grupe. Y'all stay golden. We'll catch you next time.